Hi, we're outside. Jesus, Jamie, and the Journey. I just wanted to show you some of these beautiful flowers, and if I can get out the sun here. And before we read more of my book, because the next part of the book that's coming up, we'll keep an eye on this gladiola. See how it is right now. We'll watch the baby plants just grow and grow this spring. Anyway, the next part of the book that we're going to read is another form of terror that I went through not even a year after I was strangled, that I had just got done telling you guys about. And so anyway, I'm going to hand this over to my friend Anne so she can do what she wants to do with it.
And here we go. Thanks, Jamie.
Okay, this is raw. I haven't read it after I wrote it, and it's been almost 17 years. On the last page, because of who was the cameraman, I didn't want to say what was really written here, but the last page said, I stayed and visited my brother for 4 days, yet again I was so scared I could not stay in one place for too long, for the fear that someone would come up to me and tell me that I was evil in a demonic sense. I ended up in New Lisbon, Wisconsin, working at a 76 truck stop. I was staying at a hotel 13 miles away, and I was in room 3, I believe that it was. After a few days here, I woke up with my head thrown back, my mouth pried open, and the inability to drink, speak, eat, or leave the room. I could not put my head down. I couldn't shut my mouth for more than a minute, and I felt something in the room. The being that I could not see was back. There was a slight difference this time, though. There were 2 invisible beings in the room with me. I couldn't see anything, but I knew they were there. My animals were going absolutely berserk, and I couldn't escape the torment. I stayed in that room with no food, no sleep, no peace for 3 days. I missed work. Finally, on the 3rd night, I felt that it was okay to leave. My head was still in a position of being thrown back like this, and I could not put my head back, so I got into the car, and I was driving my car, the one that you saw that almost went over the mountain, and I'm driving like this, and the only thing I can see of the road is the white line, driving 13 miles through winding roads through the forest to get back to the restaurant. And as soon as I got to the restaurant, I looked up at the truck stop window, and I collapsed. And by the time they got me to the hospital and gave me a shot, it was all over with. And the next day, I wanted to change rooms because I really kind of got superstitious after I was strangled. I mean, everything was going haywire. My core belief that Jesus Christ is God never changed, but a lot of other stuff did. And as I was changing rooms, this very, very old man came up to me with kindly blue eyes, and I believe he was an angel, and the first words out of his mouth were, they're right there on the tip of my tongue. Oh, he said, are you ready to talk yet? And I knew immediately what he wanted to talk about. He wanted to talk about the night that I was strangled. And when I got to the part about the light entering my forehead right here, he stopped me and he said, God wants you to know that that was his light that entered you, not the devil's. And from then on, I knew that it was Jesus within me and not myself. So anyway, let's get back to the book. I think I kind of...
Excuse me.
I spoke instead of reading, but hang on. The man who had come to me in Wisconsin also told me that the previous person in the room that I had just vacated was a devil worshiper. I groaned and said, what next, God? Life went on for a few more days, and I was ready to leave again. I met this man from North Carolina and found out that he wanted a house sitter for his place in West Jefferson, North Carolina. Needless to say, I was back on the road in 2 days with his house key in my hands. I stayed in North Carolina for 2 weeks and loved every single minute of it. I had loved my husband the best way that I knew how, yet I was so afraid of him and everybody else that I wasn't any good for either of them. I felt called back to Las Vegas, so 4 days later I showed up on his birthday. It wasn't a very good reunion after the way I had left him in the middle of the night. When we finally went back to his house, he had crack cocaine sitting on the table, and for the first time in 10 years, I picked up the pipe. In the next 4 months, we lost my car, the house, the puppy, our companionship, and ended in the back of his Chevy truck, living in the middle of the Nevada desert. I stayed in the back of that truck for 8 hours a day while he went to work at a construction job. Most of the money was spent on drugs and his gambling. We finally got a motel room on the strip, and I started working as a maid in a motel that catered to hookers and their johns. In February or March of '96, I left him again. It got to the point that I would get so scared in the middle of the night while he was sleeping that I would get on the floor to sleep. He had such a restless spirit about him that I could feel it in my stomach with every little noise that he made. He always asked me why I would get on the floor and what excuse could I give him. I couldn't explain it to anyone, and I didn't want him to think that there was something wrong with him, so I left. All of this time, for 1.5 years, I felt totally disconnected with God until one day everything changed, and that was my name, Jamie Landis.